Happy Friday to each and every one. My name is Wiley. You're watching and or will be seeing and listening to the Wiley Report. And guess who I am? I am Wiley. It's been a long time since I brought the Wiley Report, did a video or any type of recording. My apologies for that. Life has been life in the most. You see me looking out the window. That's what you see me doing because some people are shoveling the snow in my area. I'm gonna probably get out there and do it in a little bit, but I digress. The Wiley Report, the goal of the Wiley Report is to talk about information, misinformation, how information is used and applied in a way that affects us in our daily life. And like I said, it's been a minute since I've done these videos because I'm working full time and with added job responsibilities and taking two classes and just living life. And sometimes it's hard to come and do a video, even though they're great things that are happening. Well, I won't say they're great. I'll say they're things that you can talk about. So there's always content, but it's like, do you have time to content? To talk about the content, and sometimes depending on what it is, it's like, yeah, I kind of know about that, or I might be aware of it, but if I'm not an expert, then just popping up, throwing up a video, rambling, you know, about something just doesn't always seem like the best practice. But today I was thinking and have been thinking for some time about the word politics, and I'm gonna try to share my screen because we're just gonna talk about it real quick. I promise we are not gonna be here all day. If I find it, hang on. Okay, right. So you can see my screen. Good. Well, I hope you can. It's a little It's a little interesting. There you go. It took a minute to pop up. So politics, let me give you a background real quick of how politics came up for me. Politics came up for me in two different ways. One, during this past holiday season, sometimes my wife and I travel to Indy. We go to our favorite places to get takeout food, to shop and just, get away, when you're exiting cabin fever of sitting in the house and working day to day, you just want to go someplace. Sometimes that turns into fruitful finds that we get, and sometimes all we got is takeout. So everybody has their routine and things that are interesting to them. So I was in this store, and there was and then you get in the checkout line, and there are two guys in front of me, two men in front of me. One of them is a white man, the other is a black man. They're both probably around the same age, which I would assume that they are probably 50 to 60, maybe 65 tops. And I'm not trying to be ageist. I'm just saying that's just positionality or where they seem station wise in life. Elders, seasoned individuals. So the elder white man was saying, he was sharing with the black man about his service animal, because he was talking about how he was a veterinarian, not veterinarian, he was a veteran, and he was saying all the benefits of this dog, of his service animal. And he was telling the black man, said, hey, yes, it's true, I'm a veteran as well. And I don't know if he was trying to determine, if the white man was trying to determine if this black man should get a service animal, but it definitely had connotations to that, because he's like, oh, when I have these conditions, or these are the things that it does for me, and this isn't based on your disability. It just left a lot of wide array of room for interpretation. But I bring that up because while he was talking about the service animal, he also started saying, I'm not into politics. And I couldn't see really why he said that, but later, when the conversation ended and we go to check out, he's handed a flyer to the black man, and he handed a flyer to me, and he on his shirt, at the corner pocket, top pocket, it had that it was his name, and I think it was the 7th congressional district of Indianapolis. So he was running for office, which is interesting when you think of. I always say words matter, and words matter to me in life. Period. And I was just struck by looking at his shirt, and he also had a flyer that he passed that talked about his core values. What the values are, things that are important to me, you, us, what you stand on, your principles. And I think people have values whether or not they're running for an office or not. People have things that are meaningful and are beneficial to their life, things they live by. I do believe people do that in their daily life. That's not right or wrong. That's just people. So it's interesting to me, and I bring that up in today's episode because I was thinking about what does it mean to be in or not in politics, and we look at the definition. Well, politics is the association, activities associated with the governance of a country or other area, especially the debate or conflict among individuals or parties having or hoping to achieve power. There's activities of governments concerning political relations between countries, the conduct of global politics, economic status. This example is talking about economic status must be backed by military capacity. There's the academic study of government in the state. A politics lecture. My positionality and experiences in politics are that I'm not a political science student. I'm an information science doctoral student, and also associate professor in the university library. So in engineering specifically. So most of my commentary and thoughts on politics are based on either conversations I've had, not because I'm getting ready to give you a dissertation or tell you about an article that I have read or written. So I was just making this comment and thinking about information, how it's used, and just basically what does it mean when people say they're in or not in politics, which I thought that was surprising to hear this gentleman say that he's not in politics and he's running for office, because running for office does mean that you are interested in governance of, at the area that the 7th congressional district is over. I know sometimes there's the association that people say, oh, when we talk about politics, you're talking about Republican, you're talking about Democratic, you're talking about the left or the right. And so people, say they don't want to be involved in that. And then there's the other conversation too about politics. Some time ago, I do another podcast. It's called Encouraging Your Spirit. I interviewed a pastor, and he was talking about his book and how he felt that it was, does God have a gay agenda? And he was talking about his beliefs that politics do not belong in church. And for me, I didn't have pushback because during that podcast, I was there to just basically talk about the book. I did think the book was interesting and good. People that are interested in reading that should definitely get it. But I did not agree with him on his statement about politics does not belong in church spaces. And I think for me, the reason why I didn't agree with him was because for me, politics was in church. And when I say politics was in church, in my church experience growing up, even though I know this is not a podcast about church, what I mean is politics, the politics that I learned about growing up was you learned about your city and your county and your state government practices. There were actual conversations where sometimes it was candidates, sometimes it was the fact that in the community of the church itself you had members who were lawyers, who were judges, who were police men, police women. You had teachers, you had doctors, you had dentists. And oftentimes they would always have like informational sessions where they would share lived experiences, work experiences, and how they affect each and every one. And government and governance was something that they talked about a lot, because you had attorneys, you had judges, you had state representatives that didn't just show up when they were running for an election, but that were embedded in the church community. And it wasn't, and that was just, and that it wasn't just was singular, because although it's true, growing up, I had one home church, as they call it, that I grew up in. There were a lot of other churches that were interconnected and interacted with that. So you saw a lot of different people. And my father and my mother and aunts and uncles were laity and ministry leaders. So later in life, beginning, they were just laity. But so their interaction and knowing of people that had different jobs and an array of experiences and expertise was always around me. So of course, when I say politics, when I'm thinking about politics, I think about positionality. And I think the reason why it was talked about a lot for me is because the identity that you see before you is black. So politics and blackness is an experience that is not necessarily the same as somebody that's of a different identity, expression, gender, race, socioeconomic status. I wish I could say that it was the same experience, or at least I wish I could report that we were working to unify it or make it equitable, but that's not the case. So I bring that up today because we're talking about politics, and I found that surprising that the guy was saying he wasn't in it, but he was running for office. But hey, that's his business. I'm not here to judge him for that. But I bring it up also because we've been having conversations about legislation and laws, and how people make rules and regulations that affect people. So in the case of Texas, we've talked about how Texas and their laws on abortion. We've talked about Texas and their laws on critical race theory. You've also seen in other states their laws about, banning books. And as a librarian or just a person that's like really thinking, what's the deeper question, what's the deeper issue, more specifically, the attorney general in Texas, basically this week they were talking about how he was, I'm going to get it because I don't want to get it wrong, stay with me. Yeah, the Texas Attorney General declared trans medical care and child abuse uh, and targets parents. So basically, what you're finding is a lot and it isn't, Texas isn't the only state. I think there's been some more laws, or at least there's a discussion of a similar law in Ohio, and there could be others. But basically, where the state targets. The medical care, the coverage, the words that you use, the language that you say when it comes to LGBTQIAS children, and the medical care that they're interested in receiving and not just interested in receiving, have access to. So they're trying to restrict what an individual has access to for medical coverage, which is interesting because when you look at that, that's the same, the underlying theme is the same theme that is used when you look at individuals that are identified as women or women, and when you're looking at a woman's right to choose, when should she have an abortion, and then all the doctors that are in the medical care that is relates to that, and how there've been laws recently in Texas that are like, hey, we need to restrict that. And another thing to look at is positionality. Who are the people that are making these laws, and what's their relationship to what? Power. It's important to look at these things, not in the sense that I'm trying to come up or give you a conspiracy theory or scare you or use some type of scare tactic. But I do think about the concept of values and how people do have values, and what I value, what's important to you, may not necessarily be the same that you might not value the same thing. But the question in both the ideas of banning books and banning using critical race theory and saying banning its use and application in schools, when you look at the restrictions for voting rights, when you look at the restrictions in medical care, the underlying belief is, I don't think this is right. And not only do I think that it is not right for me and my household, but I also want to decide for other people what's right for them. That's the issue that I'm often like, how did we get here? It's not just that you're saying, hey, that this is wrong, this is, and that in itself is a whole nother issue. But it's like the ability to govern other people and what they do and what they choose and what's in their ability for what they feel is best for them and themselves and their households. It's like, oh, I'm gonna restrict other people from that medical care, when medical care in itself is already a disparate experience, even when you don't have the experiences of LGBTQIAS. I do not believe that these experiences are silos, because oftentimes privilege, access, positionality, race does illustrate, indicate who has access to certain services. Case in point, experiences of Black people that are trying to get a mammogram. in my own life. Shout out to I Heart Erica, who you can follow their Instagram page. She was an educator, and it was their experiences of talking about when your medical care person does not want to allow you to have a mammogram, that you state to them that you can state to your physician, will notate that you're denying my request in my medical file. It was me hearing that video and watching it, and then having the experience of being of age to get the mammogram, and having to, and it's a service that my healthcare provider provides, and my provider was literally trying to say, oh well, you need to wait a couple more years, or only if you have cancer in your family, only if you, just things that were not necessarily true, but that primary caregiver was being a gatekeeper for services in which I had access to. I'm not saying that I know for certain that my primary care physician is a racist, but I am saying it's problematic when a person has access to care, has the ability to get said care, and instead of allowing the person to get the care, you hold the gate and say you can't go. That same belief, that same behavior, that same pattern is what I'm talking about that happens when we're having these same conversations about voting restrictions, when we're having these conversations about trans care and who has access to trans care. We often hide it in the fact that oh, I'm not really trying to judge anybody. I really mean this for the betterment. You can't mean things for the betterment if you exclude anyone. You do have to understand that people should have access to all the information that is available to them, and allow them, not you, to make the best choice for them. Now, I understand that when we're thinking about the rules and the reasons for legislation, the individuals have been elected to offices to make the best decision for individuals, constituents in their state, in their city, in their county. The problem is, oftentimes they're not listening to the constituents, they're listening to the people that are providing them the money to be in the office. And when I'm saying not, I don't mean that the salaries that they make are paid by taxpayers, because I know that's often a statement when it comes to government officials, when it comes to libraries, when it comes to state, is I pay this in my taxes. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that oftentimes when people run for office, they need the funding to do that, so they're donors. And oftentimes the person who gives the most money, the donors that are always there, whatever their views, whatever their values are, oftentimes that's what the person in office listens to, whereas they run on the fact that, hey, I care about people, I'm not about politics, I want this for this person, I want this for all the people. But then when they get to the office, it changes, the conversation changes, the way that they stay in the office change. I'm just saying, these are experiences that I'm watching. I have no verifiable proof to say it is this, it is that. I'm just saying, this is a person that has lived an experience and has volunteered services for respectable state representatives. I understand the game. I really get it. I get it. And it's treacherous. It's treacherous for people who actually care about people, who actually want to help people. It really is. It's not as simple as we make it. So anyway, but the point in having this conversation today is to really think about what it means when we say politics. What does it mean when we say liberation? What does it mean when we say we want to create this society that includes all people and provides some level of access to information, access to resources that they need, be it monetary, be it jobs, be it housing, be it financial resources, be it healthcare. What does that look like? And oftentimes what we're finding is legislatively we restrict people and say, hey, and we can see that happen, in different examples of things that have come down and how they block that. It's kind of like when people have conversations and tell you that, they really want to work across the aisle with other legislators. But when the opportunity comes, they don't have any conversation. They're not interested in working across the aisle. They're only interested in working on whatever it is that they're working on. So it just becomes a conversation of placation and a conversation of inaction. And then the constituents, the people who are really in need, are having laws, rules, regulations enacted that stop them from having progress, stop them from being the best versions of their selves. And what can we do about it is thinking about ways in which we can change this system so that we don't still have the same thing happening and all we can do is watch it. Let's think of ways that you can change and dismantle the process that is currently in place that allows this to happen continuously. Because oftentimes when we look at legislatively, we think, oh, okay, if we get this person, it'll be different. And while the person we get in a specific office, whether you run for the city or the county or the state or or Congress or the presidency, it is great, it's wonderful, might be a genuinely amazing stand-up outstanding citizen, that person still has to work in the system. And how do they work in a system that is inherently failing, a system that is problematic, a system that is imperialist, a system that is filled with white supremacy, domestic terrorism, and patriarchy? How do they work through those systems? Capitalism. I mean, how do they work through some of those systems when the very things that a lot of the values and things that people are working through to make laws legislatively impact people in so many ways that do not help them? But it's what they've always done. Just giving you food for thought. I want you to think about it. And the last question, I got to go. Do you know the laws that are being enacted in your state, in your county, in your city and local government? Please know that. Please know that. I know a lot of times we don't really think about that until it affects you. Or some people think it'll never affect you. You don't have to be a part of a specific community or identify in a specific way in order for laws to affect you. Just wanted to share that. I'm not being smart. I'm just saying, know what's going on around you. Take the time to learn. Do you know, when it comes to elected officials in your city, in your county, who those people are? Do you know what their values are? And more important, do you know how they voted? Because a lot of this information is public record. You can see it. So are we paying attention? Focus. Think about it. And what kind of society, what kind of community do you envision? Because that's the underlying question. A lot of times people are saying, hey, I pay my taxes, I pay this. That's fine. Yes, people do pay taxes. But just because you pay taxes, that does not give me, you, us the right to govern the behavior of other people and say, hey, I don't get to decide for your kids. What I should be thinking, the deeper question is, how do I make the system, the process, the resources you need available in a way that suits what it is that you need? Better yet, what is it that you need? Have I taken time to really listen to that and not listen to those things from a lens that is only biased and concerned with me? Is my way of thinking, is my frame of mind inclusive of other people and their experiences? Food for thought. I got to go. Think about it. Have a good day.